Hello and welcome class. So today we are going to discuss about organization and management. As an introduction, the driving force behind every organization is its management team. Different teams operate in different ways. In here, we should note that there is a delineation of functions of every employee, and there will be a chain of command and responsibilities of this line of authorities as well as decision-making process. So in this slide, you can learn also the types of organization wherein there are different line of authorities as well as the chain of command. So actually, there is no universal accurate management to define the one that is best. It is just a concept that explains why some operations were managed successfully in the past to suggest what can be done for the future success. So in here, we are considering the best practices among organizations and that organization's effective managing tool as well as benchmarking effective procedures that is towards the success of an organization. So there is also an element of considering historical data that have made your organizations fail. So in short, we are also looking at some undesirable experiences that happened in the past. The organizational structure for small enterprise may be very simple, wherein the owner is usually the manager. He has daily contact with all the people of his organization. So the chain of command will be coming from a single entity only. Hence, he is the one who establishes the policies of his organization. He assigns a job to be done and follow up on the job for the purpose of direction and coordination. However, as his company grows bigger, the problem of organization for grouping, supervising, and serving operations become more complex. So, common sense tells us that as company grows bigger, there will be a corresponding growth in the number of the employees that you are going to supervise and instruct. The company may have the most modern plant and equipment, a highly skilled and experienced labor force, ample and financial resources, yet become failure on its purpose of making profit. So in here, of course, resources does matter in an organization. However, management of these resources is very crucial to the success of the achievement of the goals of a certain organization. So, it is not always point that if the company possesses these good resources, it does not ensure the good path to the success of an organization. Again, management is very crucial to this one. There may be reasons and circumstances responsible behind this failure, but the most frequent reason is poor management. So what is an organization? An organization is a group of individuals who are cooperating willingly and effectively for a common goal. So in the definition, there is an element of willingness. Of course, if you do not have the willingness, you might not be effective in a certain thing. So therefore, the vision, the mission, which is the mandate of an organization, as well as the goals and objective, should be clearly pointed out to every member of that organization, no matter what is his position in organization, whether she or he belongs to the top level or to the lowest level. Organizations are structured to promote better management. So in here, the organization looks at managing its resources, that is a primary concern, and then how these goals and objectives will be implemented or achieved, and better inputs for the systems and processes of a certain organization. A good executive may be able to secure good results with a poor organization. Say, for example, a certain leader is being tapped to transform a poor organization. So, of course, he can do it if he possesses the traits of a good leader and a good executive. Otherwise, a good organization may produce results from a poor executive. So this statement is the other way around, wherein a certain shift in an administration would lead to a downfall of a certain organization. So this is contrary to the first statement, wherein a good executive may be able to secure good results with a poor organization. So the structural organization. Structural organization is the formal arrangements that are established to coordinate all activities in order to implement a given strategy. Thus, structure reflects the anatomy of a firm through its focus on the mechanism and processes that link both vertically and horizontal the various parts of an organization. So, the structural organization reflects the chain of command and communication, as well as the functions of each level, and reflects where to refer to, and reflects who will make the decision process. So there are types of organizational structures according to line of authority. So first, we have the common one, the hierarchical organizational structure. We also have functional organization structure, and then horizontal or flat organizational structure. We also have divisional organizational structure. So this is basically either market-based, product-based, or geographic. We also have matrix organization structure, team-based organizational structure, and network organizational structure. For the hierarchical organizational structure, so this is actually the most common type of organizational structure. So it is based on a top-down chain of command structure. So with this, It practices supervisor-employee scheme. So every employee has its supervisor, and each supervisor will have their subordinates. So this is an example of hierarchical organizational structure. It is in the form of a pyramid wherein there are few entities from the top and expands at the bottom. So this is an example of Kalinga State University organizational structure. In here, we can see that the president will be handling so many line of authorities wherein the president will be the top level and he is also being watched by the Board of Regents or the board or BOR. In here, a broken line connecting to the president is the Commission on Audit, because this is the oversight committee for every state universities and colleges as well as public offices. So on the president, we have the top executives, the executive assistant, the ICT center, and then the FTDC, grievance university information officer, the internal control unit, the board or university secretary, the director for planning and infrastructure, director for quality assurance, the local officers, the administrative council, academic council, research council, extension council, IGP board of management. So when we say the top executive, they are the one to, to make decision making on the operations of the university. And going down, we have the vice president, three vice presidents for research, development, extension, and training, admin and finance, as well as academics and student development. So under their umbrella, they have their corresponding directors. So we are now on the middle level. So those are the middle level directors, and then the campus administrator will handle the deans, chairman of the general services office, the chairman for administration, chairman for student development and services. And we also have under the umbrella of the middle managers are more exposed to the implementation of the system's inputs and processes, as well as instruction coming from the top executives and middle managers. You can see here the flow. The executives will be the top level, followed by the senior managers, and then the middle managers, and then the workers. Normally, executives would tend to deliver executive information systems, and then the senior managers can make decision support systems. The middle manager, management, so there are more on operations, managing the resources, the elements of organization, so management information systems, and then the workers, they will be the one to work or to do what is instructed from the top. In short, the workers would be the one to do the dirty works, and the hands-on. So in hierarchical organization, it is observed that the deliverables can be seen on the office performance commitment and review. So what is the meaning of this? You can see in the organization presented a while ago that there are various offices. So these various offices will be having its deliverables, and these deliverables is emanating from the top level. Okay, and then in short, the top level will set the tone for the focus of the organization, and then cascaded to offices, and then through individual members. So in here, me as a supervisor or the dean of the college will be under the campus administrator and evaluated within my performance on a certain key performance indicator. So there are also IPCR or individual performance commitment and review. This is of course to monitor the performance of each employee, whether they belong to the top level, middle managers, and the workers. So what are the advantages of hierarchical organizational structure? So it better defines levels of authority and responsibility. So of course, when you are under the umbrella of the campus administrator, your supervisor is the campus administrator. And then if you are within the vice president level, of course, your supervisor will be the president, and you are bound to make decision support systems as mentioned. So another advantage is shows who each person reports to or who to talk to about specific projects. Also, it motivates employees with clear career paths and chances for promotion. So as mentioned, their performance is also being monitored by their supervisor. So of course, there will come a time that they will be promoted or be designated to become on the top level. So it gives each employee a specialty. It creates camaraderie between employees within the same department. Of course, this is given since a certain office consists of many manpower wherein they can collaborate with each other to deliver the services and their deliverables in their respective offices. Now, what would be the disadvantages of this hierarchical organizational structure? So first, it can slow down innovation or important changes due to increased bureaucracy. As you can see, on the hierarchical scheme, it has a lot of stages. So with this, a lot of process will also be anticipated. So there is this ISO. When you are applying for ISO accreditation, there are control mechanisms to avoid this disadvantage of hierarchical organizational structure. One of the example is if you are going to process a certain transaction, there are a lot of signatories coming from the middle level, the senior managers, and then the top executives. So the ISO mechanism will tend to shorten the process by having streamlining. Okay, when we say streamlining, you are going to shorten the process or simplify the process by controlling or minimizing the required signatories. So in here, there is a filtering system wherein the signatories will be optimized. Okay, so you are going to seek for the signatory of, I think ISO will have at least or at a maximum of 3 signatories. So they will just refer to the most significant signatory or relevant signatory on the process. So this is only one example of controlling this one. So another disadvantage is that can cause employees to act in the interest of the department instead of the company as a whole. So aside from the camaraderie, there will be an intercompetence which is also good in an in a healthy environment of an organization. However, this can misdirect employees instead of acting on for the university. They will just be focused on acting within their office or department, which is not also good. And then it can make lower level employees feel like they have less ownership and can express their ideas for the company. So it should be noted here in hierarchical organizational structure that the workers will not be flexible, or they will become flexible in a decision made by their supervisor. But if you are a subordinate, you cannot you can do anything else but to follow their orders. So you do not have the right to make decisions. So functional organizational structure. So this is normally most adopted by local contractors. So it is quite similar to that of the hierarchical type of organizational structure. So it uses also the top-down scheme. The only difference is that the structure is dictated by their line of specialty. So employees are organized according to their forte or their specific skills. So this is one example of a functional organization. So this is a functional organization structure of a contractor actually. So it is also a top-down, but in here, there will be a functional division for administrative equipment division, and then the operations division, and then the heavy equipment division. So under administrative, we have a horizontal line or horizontal line of authority. Under this, we have cash fund officer, bookkeeper, general clerk, and the clerk. So their supervisor will be the division's chief. And then the operation division, we have the operations chief. Under his authority, we have the material engineer, construction supervisor, chief carpenter, chief mason, plumber, painter, welder, and the laborers. Similarly, we have the heavy equipment division. Of course, there will be a chief for this division and the subordinates, the operators, the drivers, mechanic, and property custodian, and the warehousemen. So what would be the advantages of this functional organization structure? So it allows employees to focus on their role, of course, their specialty, their forte. Of course, it encourages specialization and help teams and department feel self-determined because the other divisions will have their respective roles and responsibilities. So there are more focus on their division. So it is easily scalable in any size company. So it is applicable to small companies and bigger companies. So what would be the disadvantages? It can create silos within an organization. It hampers interdepartmental communication. It obscures processes and strategies for different markets or products in a company. So therefore, the disadvantages to functional organization is that it hampers the collaboration between and among employees since they are only concerned on their division. So what are these organizational silos? So it is said that functional silos in a business are teams of employees grouped by function that all operate separately from each other without cross collaboration. So the name comes from the way of storing grains that ensures separation of different grains and often uses top down. In business, organizational silos refer to business divisions that operate independently and avoid sharing information. So this is not good. It also refers to businesses whose departments have silo system applications in which information cannot be shared because of system limitations. Again, this could not be good for an organization. So, overcoming organizational silos. So, number one, to avoid these organizational silos, we have create a unified vision of team collaboration. So again, the vision of our organization must be cascaded to every member of the organization. So another one, work toward common goals using collaboration tools. So there are a lot of collaboration tools that may be applicable for your organization. So this is also a key element, educate, work, and train together. And lastly, evaluate compensation plans. So what will be and should be the compensation for your employees? So in here, a compensation plan is basically a payment package which is designed to attract and of course to retain your employees. So we have here basic compensation package. So the basic compensation, so from the word basic, it consists solely of a salary or wages. So the compensation is focused on the wages only. And for a more comprehensive compensation, it could include additional benefits like bonuses, commissions, perks, insurances like health insurance, retirement, and other premiums. So another key to overcome organizational silos is communication. Of course, you should intercommunicate with other employees as well other divisions. So another type of organization is horizontal or flat organizational structure. So it is characterized by a very few levels of upper management and staff level employees. In here, many startup businesses use a horizontal organizational structure before they grow large enough to build out different departments. But some organizations maintain this structure since it encourages less supervision and more involvement from all employees. So this is literally an example of flat organizational structure. So as we can see, there are only one chain of command among employees. There are also flat organization that adds top level, but very few of them. So what would be the advantages of this flat organizational structure? So it gives employees more responsibility. In short, the roles and responsibility are involved, but the key here is that the organizations should also look into the compensation of that employee. So it fosters more open communication. It is because that the line of authority is very few. They can intercommunicate with each other. So it improves coordination and speed of implementing new ideas. Unlike in that hierarchical, subordinates does not have the right to make decisions. They are only bounded to perform their task. So what are the disadvantages of flat organizational structure? First, it can create confusion since employees do not have a clear supervisor to report to. It can produce employees with more generalized skills and knowledge. So highlighted here is the generalized skills since they are not they are multitask employees. So it can be difficult to maintain once the company grows beyond startup status, of course, that is given. So another type of org structure is divisional organizational structure. A company's divisions have control over their own resources. So they have the direct access to utilize their own resources, essentially operating like their own company within the larger organization. So this structure works well for large companies as it's empower the various divisions to make decisions without everyone having to report to just a few executives. So each division can have its own marketing team, sales team, IT team, and the like. So under this divisional organizational structure, we have the market-based divisional org structure. So in here, divisions are separated by market, industry, or customer type. A large consumer goods company like Target or Walmart, so this is one type of companies, might separate its durable goods. So there are divisions for the clothing, electronics, furniture, and the like. So in here, Food division and logistic divisions are also separated. So from products to the transport systems and the marketing strategies. So we have here the market-based divisional org structure. So this is based on the products. We have the skin and face care division, cosmetics division, personal care division. So as you can see, their organizational structure, we will have the delineation of their roles by their respective division, denoted by or uh, presented in colors. Okay? We also have the product-based divisional organizational structure. So divisions are separated by product line. For example, a tech company might have a division dedicated to its cloud offerings, while the rest of the divisions focus on the different software offerings like Adobe, Photoshop, InDesign, and the like. So under divisional org structure, we also have the geographic. So divisions are separated by region, territories, or districts, offering more effective localization and logistics. Companies may establish satellite offices across the country or the globe in order to stay close to their customers. Normally, in our county, we have the food uh, products like Jollibee, McDonald's. So they are also adopting this geographic divisional organizational structure. So on the food chain companies. So we also have this one, the geographic one. We have the San Francisco and New York. Okay. So what would be the drawback, the advantages of the divisional organizational structure? First, helps large companies stay flexible. So it promotes independence, autonomy, and a customized approach. When we say a customized approach, they also have the strategy to fit in within their local environment. So it allows for a quicker response to industry changes or customer needs. So of course, they are customer sensitive, and the disadvantage would be it can easily lead to duplicate resources. So like for example, we have a burger machine. So this has a lot of satellite that could borrow their resources from other satellite or network. Okay, so there there could be a problem. It is good that they have this scheme resource sharing, but it's not also good because they would have a problem. They could create a problem in their inventories. So can mean muddled or insufficient communication between the headquarters and its divisions because their satellite or network are also independent and can access with their own resources. They can feel that they are they are an independent company or they might forget that they belong to a certain franchise. So this is given. It can result in a company competing with itself. So another type of org structure, we have the matrix. The matrix organizational chart looks like a grid and it shows cross-functional teams that form for special projects. For example, An engineer may regularly belong to the engineering department led by an engineering director, but work on a temporary project led by a project manager. So the meaning of this is that the top executives or the leaders could choose from any department because the organizational structure is in the matrix form. In here, the line of authority is not well defined because of that arrangement. The matrix organizational chart accounts for both of these roles and reporting relationships. So what would be the advantages? It allows supervisors to easily choose. They can pick among from the individuals by the needs of a project. It gives a more dynamic view of the organizational structure. Why? Unlike in that hierarchical organizational structure, it must have to undergo stages or levels of systems and processes. So the bureaucracy is more utilized in that hierarchical. Unlike in matrix, there is the elimination of the bureaucracy among the levels of the organization. So it encourages employees to use their skills in various capacities aside from their original roles. So there is also an element of multitasking in this matrix organizational structure. So for its disadvantages, it presents a conflict between department managers and project managers. Why? Because the line of authority is not clearly defined in this structure. It can change more frequently than other organizational chart types. And then another organizational structure type, we have the team-based. In this, it is made of teams working towards a common goal while working on their individual tasks. So the decision making is also their tasks and roles. So they are the executive themselves doing their individual tasks. They are less hierarchical and they have flexible structures that reinforce problem solving, decision making, and teamwork. So this is an example of the team-based organizational structure. So from the chief executive officer, they have the team. The CEO has her team here to work on their individual tasks and at the same time, problem solvers and decision makers. So what would be the advantages of this team-based organizational structure? So it increases productivity, performance, and transparency by breaking down silo mentality. It promotes a growth mindset, changes the traditional career models by getting people to move laterally, values experience rather than seniority. So they have the same position, almost the same function, that is problem solver, and the workers themselves. It requires minimal management because there will be a synergy among themselves. They synergize to solve the problems of the organization and at the same time they perform what is good to their company. So what would be the disadvantages of this team-based organizational structure. So first, it goes against many companies' natural inclination of a purely hierarchical structure. So it might make promotional paths less clear for employees. So they could feel that their promotion their promotion is somewhat vague and not that comprehensive. So another type of structure is we have the network organizational structure. So these days, few businesses have all their services under one roof, and juggling the multitude of vendors, subcontractors, freelancers, off-site locations, and satellite offices, which can get confusing. Actually, this is the charac- character of a network. We have the freelancers, vendors, sourcing out their services to others. Then, because of that, a network organizational structure makes sense of the spread of resources. It can also describe an internal structure that focuses more on open communication and relationships rather than hierarchy. So this is the network organizational structure. So it is characterized by the geography, of course, the spread out of resources from different places. The marketing could be derived or could be implemented through freelance. And then the project management is done on other place as well as the sales and customers success and then the operations. Okay, so that is the nature of the network organizational structure. So what would be the advantages? It visualizes the complex web of on-site and off-site relationships in companies, allows companies to be more flexible and agile, give more power to all employees to collaborate, take initiative, and make decisions, helps employees and stakeholders understand workflows and processes. And the disadvantages, it can quickly become overly complex when dealing with lots of off-site processes. So important here the interlink between those network. So the key element is the linkage between those networks. Can make it more difficult for employees to know who has the final say. Now moving on, we have the structural elements. What are the structural elements of an organization? We have 5 M's here. We have the men, materials, machine, methods, and of course, money. So these are the resources of an organization. So men, these are the different members of the organization starting from the very top of the last workman in the enterprise. Of course, an organization should need a material that represents the necessary in the distribution of functions or in the attainment of its objectives. So they should also have the tools and then the methods. So the methods are the systems, the processes, the procedures and ways used in the course of its actions. And then, of course, the financial resources of the organization, which is the money. So we have the major elements of the organization structures. We have the distribution of functions. Of course, the functions to be performed, the groupings of functions, and the vertical and horizontal task relationship among the functions. So this will be established by your structural organizational type. So the vertical and horizontal relationship, who are authority to what? So this is also the same to communication and decision process, the authority. So the manner in which formal decisions are made and by whom. And then we have the policies, the decision, rules, or guidelines established. So the major elements actually defines or describes the management of resources. So moving on, what would be the principles of good organizations? So first, a clear and complete definition of the objective must be known. So again, every employee should know what is the purpose of the organization or the company. And then it should have, he or she must have a knowledge of why the organization exists. So any business concern or any individual must adhere to a definite purpose or aim. For example, if the aim of if the aim to make plans and construct a project, then the entire organization must be built with that idea, and those in the company must think and act in terms of the quality of the work. The objective serves as the guide to future planning in action. So meaning their deliverables is not only quantified but must be delivered with quality. So it integrates policies, projects, and programs. It enables everybody to act consistently according to a common goal. So in an organization, an important element also is the analysis. So there must be a sound business judgment. So it attempts to build an organization through full knowledge of the requirements of the business. There should be study as to whether the project could be finished at the right time and at the right price the client will be able to pay. So in here, it should be noted that an organization has its resources, and these resources also have its limitations. So you cannot address everything in an organization. So therefore, an analysis should be done so that you can optimize the use of your resources, wherein you can address what is significant or relevant to the current status of your organization. In short, you should have the thinking of prioritization. Prioritization is the key term here. So one of the commonly used tool is the SWOT analysis. So it is a tool in assessing an organizational situation. Actually, when you plan, you do SWOT analysis. Why? Because your courses of action will be based on the previous experiences, and also it is your actions will be dictated by the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats of your company, whether in internal environment and external environment. So therefore, you should have a clear view of relationship with the internal and external environment. So on the steps, step 1 is the identification. So there is such thing called as internal and external scanning. Of course, you should know your environment internally and externally by knowing your strength, your weaknesses. Actually, the strength and weaknesses are internal, and the opportunities and threats, these are external environment. So on the strength, it is the clear company vision, mission, and objectives. It should look into the competent project management services staff, the responsive corporate structure, and the captured client. So the weaknesses should look into the leniency of management for delayed and substandard outputs, the technological obsolescence of IT infrastructure. So what are the insufficiencies in the infrastructure? So long turnaround time in filling vacant positions, nascent social media management. Actually, these are examples. Okay, so this is one example of a SWOT analysis. So in here, we can see the definitions or the consideration in scanning the internal and external environment. Of course, the internal, what is the strengths and weaknesses the company possesses, and what are the opportunities and threats beyond your company or your organization. Of course, strength and opportunities are positive attributes that the organization can utilize, and weakness and threats are negative attributes that the company should address. So strengths, these refer to attributes of the organization that are helpful to achieving the objective. It is a distinctive competence when it gives the organization a comparative advantage with other comparable organizations. So the weaknesses, this refers to the attributes of the organization that are harmful to achieving the objective. A weakness is a limitation or deficiency in one or more resources or competencies relative to competitors that impedes the organization's effective performance. For opportunities, this represents external conditions that are helpful to achieving objective. So opportunities, take note, is not yet possessed by the organization, but it can be utilized. So the threats, these are major unfavorable situation in organization environment. These are key impediments. When we say impediments, we are anticipating some threats to the organization. So these are key impediments to the organization's current or desired positions. So step 2, filtering or prioritization. So as I have said, your resources are limited and cannot address all of the concerns of your organization. In this, we filter the listed strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats based on, first, on the strengths, confidence in sustainability. When we say confidence in the sustainability, thus your organization can sustain the strength within a time frame. So the strength could be vanished in a certain time. So that is the anticipation. And thus your strength has the significant impact to vision. So these two are the criteria in filtering your strength. And in weaknesses, the feasibility of correction or neutralization. So again, we look at the impact to vision. So for opportunities and threats, actually you can list a lot of them, but what would be the impact to vision and the likelihood of its occurrence, or the percentage of its occurrence, or the probability of its occurrence. And then this is the important part, or the last part of your SWOT analysis, the matching. Of course, in here, we use our strength and opportunities, maximize, okay? So we have first the SO strategies. The SO strategies, or the strength opportunity strategies, is to maximize your strengths to capitalize on new opportunities. And then for the weaknesses opportunity strategy, we are going to conquer your weaknesses by making the most out of any new opportunities. We also have the strength and threat strategies. Use your strength to minimize threats. And then we also have the weakness to threat strategies. We minimize your internal weaknesses and avoid external threats. So as a summary, what we are trying to address here are the negative attributes. So we use the positive attributes to address the negative attributes. So moving on for our example. So let us have this step 1. So this is actually an example for an infrastructure unit for a certain university. So there are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that are identified here. Say for the internal environment, we have the strength. The office is manned by licensed engineer. And then competent and committed supervisor. Then supportive administration on office resources. And then we have the adequacy of manpower. So when we say adequacy of manpower, there are a lot of personnel to handle projects and perform the tasks in infrastructure, like drawing the plans, doing the estimates, then doing the field works and supervision on projects. So on the weaknesses, we have tardiness and absenteeism of infrastructure personnel. And then this personnel non-compliance to submission of reports. And then we have the non-availability of permanent positions in the office. And then we have also staffs are not specialized. So they are general civil engineers, but not specialized to something like structural, geotechnical, and the like. So for the opportunities, availability of seminars and trainings to capacitate personnel, then the availability of performance-based bonus, and then the availability of competent professional faculty personnel. And the threats, the commission on audit observations would be a threat for the office, since these are negative attributes. Then the budget constraints on some proposed projects. And then delays on project implementation due to the fault of contractor. So these are the identified strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the organization. So in here, we can view the environment of the organization or the status of the organization in terms of its internal environment and external environment. So moving on to step 2, filtering. So we're going to eliminate what is not relevant here. So first, the office is manned by licensed engineer could be removed because this could be irrelevant, or we cannot use this as a strength because this is just a mandate or compulsory requirement for the office to have a licensed civil engineer. We can also eliminate in the weakness the non-availability of permanent positions in the office because there is a light chance to have a permanent position in the office of the infrastructure given that SUCs can only create items when it is appropriately justified and we would have a long process to do it. So another opportunity or another item to be eliminated under opportunities, we have availability of PBB or performance-based bonus because this cannot be applicable to temporary staff or contractual staff. So we cannot use this either. And then for the threat, of course, the SUC have no control on budget constraints on some proposed projects. So the only projects to be handled by the infrastructure are the ones with funding. So those are the filtering. So the filtering is to rationalize your SWOT by elimination of the items that are irrelevant to your strategies. So in here, the third step is the matching. Of course, for the strength and opportunity strategies. So it can be recalled here that we have availability of competent professional faculty personnel. That is an opportunity with the strength of adequacy of manpower. So therefore, for our strategy, strength opportunity strategy, we have faculty personnel to share their expertise to the infrastructure personnel. So take note that the faculty personnel will come from the engineering department. So those are professionals with permanent positions teaching in the academy to share their expertise to those of the practicing engineer in the infrastructure unit. Next, for the weakness opportunity strategy. So the weakness is that the complacency, your staff are not specialized. So we can use that opportunity of availability of seminars and trainings to capacity personnel. So in here, we can see in the weakness the tardiness and absenteeism of infrastructure personnel and their non-compliance to submission of reports. So therefore, they are somewhat complacent. Therefore, they need to be subject to leadership training. You may send them to that leadership training and something that is relevant to building their building their motivation in their work. So weakness opportunity strategy here is implement relevant capacity building for the staff. So moving on to the strength threat strategies or S/T strategies. So in here, so the strength, we have the competent and committed supervisor to handle its staff and the supportive administration on office resources. In here, there might be a multitasking happening in the office that could be eliminated by the elimination of specific tasks to the staff to avoid multitasking. So there will be a focus on what are their roles and responsibilities. Like for example, a certain engineer doing supervisory works, at the same time doing paperworks, at the same time doing design and drawing of the plans. So there will be no delineation of tasks to that staff in which the staff is actually performing a lot of tasks or multitasking activities. So another strength and threat strategy is to rationalize project to project engineer ratio. So your project engineer might be handling too many burdens or too many projects, big projects, in which he or she can no longer attend to her own capacity. Okay, so to improve it, you need to look into rationalizing the ratio of the project engineer to project ratio. So you must have to control the projects he or she is handling. So for the weakness threat strategy, so in here, the tardiness and absenteeism of infrastructure personnel might hamper the supervision of the projects in which could lead to COA or audit observations. So again, the weakness of infrastructure personnel non-compliance to submission of reports could also cause these audit observations. Therefore, we eliminate or avoid this weakness to eliminate also the COA audit observations and delays on project implementation. So as a strategy, so we intensify monitoring scheme for project reporting. So with this, it could also address the delays on project implementation due to fault of contractor because you can address immediately some issues and concerns on site at the right time. Now to summarize the internal and external environment, internal environment stands for the factors affecting performance within the company itself. This could be both positive and negative in nature. So that is the strength and the weaknesses. And then for external environment, it is within outside the context of the organization. So these factors are beyond the control of the organization, which may affect it in positive or negative ways. So strengths are the things that the organization does well, its core competency in production, sales, innovation, and the like. The weaknesses are the areas which need improvement, such as a high attrition rate. For the threats are the foreign variables that affect the company, such as government regulations, entry of new competitors, or even natural disasters. So in an organization, simplicity is also a key element to the attainment of its goals and objectives. The simplest organization that will serve to attain the desired objective is considered the best. So, meaning the organization does not have to be a complex organization. So, the selection of the type, of the organizational type does not rely or dictated by the complexity of the problem it may handle. All activities which are absolute necessary should be eliminated, and those retained should be handled in the simplest practical way. So, in a, an, in a hierarchical organizational type, you need to eliminate unnecessary processes that is also delaying the outputs, as well as incurring relevant resources like spending a lot of paper for that reports, or sending multi-copies to different offices, and a lot of signatories in a certain process. So practically, you could eliminate that and rationalize the process by streamlining. So creation of position should be based on paramount necessity, and all activities which do not pay in terms of pesos and centavos should be eliminated. So again, streamlining is the key element. So basically, the positions that are created in an organization should be meticulously justified and should not be a duplication of the other functions of the other positions. Functionalism. The organization should be built around the main functions of the businesses and not around the individuals. A function is a normal or characteristic way of doing a task that stands out distinctively by itself. The nature of the business determines the main functions of the business. This is the proper basis for organization to be established. If an organization of any concern is built around the functions, proper distribution of work could easily be done, thus eliminating any one man to become so powerful and so dependable upon to be indispensable. So in this principle, we do not insert personal personal provisions on creating jobs or functions. It must be based on the activities and the need of the organization itself. So again, we do not insert personal relationship in business. So when a certain person commits mistake, we should learn from that and, of course, to control and manage your manpower objectively but not subjectively. So the departmentalization. In big organization, the scope of operation can be very broad, necessitating departmentalization to achieve a smoother flow of operations. Departmentalization can be through functions, products, location, or by projects of the organization. So this is actually discussed on the types of an organization. Again, if an organization is becoming bigger or expanding, the more it may become complex. So the key element in an organization to handle a complex organization is by doing departmentalization, like departmentalization of administration to the academic operations when you are in uh, universities and colleges, something like that. So centralization of authority and responsibility. In every organization, there should be centralized executive control or command authority. This is necessary in order to have authority and responsibility definitely fixed. When there is unity of command, every person knows what he can perform within his scope of authority, knows the thing for which he is responsible of, and also whom to report to and consult in case of problems and doubts. So organizational chart clearly defines the centralization of authority and responsibility. That is why in most organizations, the organizational chart of the organization is posted in every offices and conspicuous places because each individual should know their line of authority and level in the organization. So we also have the limited span of control. So it refers to the number of subordinates an executive can manage effectively. So of course, there is a limitation of the executive could handle. Organization in business. Business had been defined as an organization of people with varied skill which uses capital and talents to produce goods or services, which can be sold to others of more than their costs, or it may be considered as the system through which economic activity was organized by those who seek to make profit. Organization is a group of individuals who are cooperating willingly and effectively for a common goal. Fundamentally, most construction enterprises are selling the time of their workers, their machineries, plant, equipment, and money. The efficient use of the time and these assets will determine the amount of profit to be realized, which is the primary goal of investing efforts and capital in construction business. So in here, time is important factor in attaining goals and objectives. Remember that we are not just achieving goals or delivering these goals to the clients, but to deliver it with a time frame. So therefore, the efficiency of use of time is important. To be effective, human activities have to be coordinated. Efficient coordination requires more than an organizational framework. At the top of the foundation is coordination. This is the attribute that integrates all the elements of an organization into an operating unity. Say, for example, when a college intends to conduct a training or webinar to a certain barangay. Of course, the college would need to coordinate with the supply office or the procurement section for a timely delivery of the needed resources or material like food, the venue, the paper to be used, and then the coordination with the participants, the accommodation of the participants, and among others. So when it is not coordinated, of course, the extension project or seminar would be likely to be a failure. So experience proved that higher accomplishment is dependent upon the interest and willing cooperation of both the project supervisor and the workers. So what is management? Management is a process. The process of directing and facilitating the work of people who are organized for a common purpose. The process of combining the efforts and resources of individuals with a common interest to achieve a desired objective. It is actually a function, the function of getting things done through the efforts of the others, the application of authority, and the assumption of responsibility. So when you manage, of course, you need to monitor, not only to direct your staff or employees, but to, of course, know their situation and then know the status of the office. So those are the assumption of responsibility. So it is an art, the art of handling people. Management properly applied gives individuals in the same organization the feeling of security, of recognition, of opportunity, and of belonging. You should note that your employees are also working with their future and, of course, their daily living. They are also anticipating a growth, a growth that they could achieve in your organization. So therefore, you as a leader should not only concern on their deliverables or their responsibilities, but also your responsibility is to make them happy in their work so that you can win their commitment towards the success of your organization. Without this, of course, there will be a failure on the organization. So four types of function. We have the planning. So planning is the foundation, pillar of management, the base upon which all other areas of management are built, requires administration to assess where the company presently is. So of course that is the SWOT, the purpose of the SWOT that was discussed before. So you should assess the status, the environment, and of course the direction of the organization after a certain years. So planning is an appropriate course of action is determined and implemented to attain the company's goals and objectives. And then after planning, of course, you must have to direct. Attempts to motivate and lead the employees toward the planned objective. Therefore, inspirational in nature. So it is not merely directing them to what to do and emphasizing their obligations, but also to inspire your employees by giving future benefits to them, okay, like promotion, incentive, bonuses, and the like. So it aims to delegate tasks to subordinates. Doing this the right way can be helpful in increasing the productivity of the entire organization. So in directing, you should direct in a more realistic way. The, there could be instances that you are directing in a wrong person. So there could be also an instance that you may direct them without giving them the right equipment or resources. So after directing, of course, number three is control. Happens after the planning process has been implemented and the task is assigned. Aims to see if the results are in line with the objectives set forth in the original plan. So in control, there is an element of monitoring what is accomplished and what are still yet to be accomplished. The number four, the staff. An important function because it puts the right man in the right job. So remember to delegate the right person to that office. So management concept. Management to be effective must be systematic. Things can be done better by means of plan of action. The plan is a step-by-step outline of what is to be done and who does what. Good decisions and actions are based on systematic application of sound principles of complete and reliable facts and good practices. When management is systematic, there can be no room for personalities, prejudices, and unfair judgment. So everything in here will be put in an operations manual. So the operations manual will have all the systems and processes, the procedures, and the output. So with this, systematic approach can be facilitated. So management to be successful must be scientific. Scientific management has done more to advance and win the status of mankind today than has any other single factor. By the application of the scientific method to the study and analysis of the operations of a particular job, men have discovered the best known methods of performing the operation. Since there is always a better way of doing job, men will keep on experimenting and analyzing the different factors affecting their work in search of the one best way. They will develop better methods of increasing production without increasing work time and operating costs. So in an organization, accreditation to ISO or or a mechanism to set standards for a certain organization is an essential. So as discussed in this presentation, there are a lot of scientific tools to be utilized by organization. One of which is the SWOT analysis. So actually, SWOT analysis is only among several tools of uh, organizational analysis and scientific methods to handle complex problems in an organization. So management must be humanistic. So this is a very important where machine may have the standard of efficiency and be set to run at a given speed. Human beings, whether manager or workers, cannot be so easily regulated to a predetermined point of accomplishment. Human being preferably should be led by goals they accept as justifiable, worthy, and fair to all concerned. This led us to human relations. It has been proven many times in the past that application of good human relations pays off through cooperation and coordination, leading towards greater accomplishment. So you should note here that in organization, human has feeling and limitation. So remember to put on stress management like sports program and health program for them to also physically and mentally sound. So you can also send them to field trips, excursion, and team building, socialization. So in short, extracurricular activities are also key element in an organization. That is why in state universities and colleges, there are a lot of them like University Day, Foundation Day, intramurals, um, sports and socio-cultural activities, and a lot more activities for students and faculty. So management structures. The line of responsibility works in two ways, from the executive to the supervisor down to the workers, under his jurisdiction and conversely. And then from the workers to those who are in authority over him. Note here that the line of authority must be kept clear at all times in order to facilitate the ready flow of communications and concept. Take note, when you are a supervisor, does not mean that you handle all the workers down. You have the line of authority. Okay? So this is the end of our slide and discussion for today, organization and management. So I hope you learned from this discussion and thank you for listening and God bless.